Welcome to the Obesity Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Rentea, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. Here, we talk about a path to metabolic health, and we have real conversations about chronic weight management and living a full life. Just a reminder, I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. So everything that's on this podcast is for informational purposes, but please go talk to your doctor about what's right for you. There is no medical advice being given on this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we have something really special because I have Amanda Sabicer here with me.
Hey, Matea.
You know, it's a rarity when we do an episode together in person. In fact, we've never done this before. So this is exciting. However, let me start out. We're going to have this on both of our podcasts. So I'm going to start out introducing myself in case you are listening on Amanda's and don't know who I am. I am Dr. Rentea. I'm a board certified internal medicine and obesity medicine physician. I own and operate the Rentea Metabolic Clinic. It's a telehealth obesity medicine practice in Indiana and Illinois. And I'm the host of the podcast, The Obesity Guide with Rentea, MD. So Amanda, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are before we say what we're doing?
Sure. I'm Amanda Sabicer. I'm the host of the Physician Business Podcast, and I help women physicians build and grow their own clinics.
Love it. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about taking any learning opportunity and getting the max out of it. The reason that we're doing this topic is that Amanda and I, when we think about the past year, I think we calculated it and we have been at 6 conferences together, whether it be, we're laughing, whether it be her conferences, because that included 2 of them, whether it be different retreats and things that we were attending. But the point is, we have become ninjas at going to events, whether they are crappy or not, and getting massive value.
I like to think of the conferences like a Capri Sun drink, and I just stick a straw in there and I want to suck it dry. I'm going to extract as much value from that conference as I can.
What we started to notice is that everyone started to say, oh my gosh, all this stuff happened for you guys after each of these conferences. And what we realized is it was not the conference. It was what we did.
Yeah, I have some bad news for folks. You can pay a lot of money and go to a conference and show up and be grossly disappointed in what you see when you get there.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth? It's really disappointing, right? Because I really think that people believe that if they spend more money on something, that the outcome is going to be better. That can't be further from the truth.
No, it's so ironic because you spend all this money on a flight, all this money on a hotel, probably renting a car, coordinating with other people. Do you know how many Venmo splits we have on meals?
Oh, gosh.
And calculating all of that later on for business expenses? It's a total hassle.
It's a nightmare. Well, what's funny is Amanda coaches me, right? So I was doing my taxes this past year and I calculated what percentage I had spent on self-development. Amanda's cringing. I needed coaching on the shame that I felt for how much I spent on it. But the reality is you don't know until you go to these things what's going to be worth it or not.
Something that came up when we were talking about the cost of the conferences, because you and I have spent a lot of money on this over the years, is at the end of the day, it really is up to us and our brains to make sure that we extract the value. It's not the money that you spend. And it's gotten to the point where other people ask us how we do it and what happens next. Like, what is going on for us in the conference that we leave happy, energized, focused? I mean, how many business plans have we created?
Oh, it's endless. Basically, we've gotten to the point where we always leave having a new quarterly goal. We leave very focused. And I'm going to give just a little example here. One of the times we were so busy during the experience, the only time we actually had to do this was, I think I had a flight, I want to say 2 hours before yours. And actually, everybody, Amanda had a flight at a different airport 30 minutes away. Okay. I'm just giving you reference how this is not easy. So Amanda, I'm a baby. And I said, hey, can you please come to the airport with me? Because I don't want to do this Uber alone. We can hang out for 1 hour before then I'll get on my flight and you go over to the other airport. So Amanda's amazing. And she says, yes, this is why we're friends. And so we're at the airport. I haven't even checked in, obviously, right? Because we're there. We sat there for 1 hour. We went through, hey, what are your goals? What are my goals? I hammered it out. That was the most prolific hour. It had nothing to do with the previous 3 days. It was that 1 hour.
But you know what that 1 hour was built on? Was a commitment to transformation.
Yeah.
We were like sponges.
Yeah.
Soaking, seeking.
yes to that. I'm sorry to cut you off. And we were angry because we'd had a horrible experience. We had a horrible experience at that conference. And so through that anger came amazing objective for what almost through going through a bad experience, we knew what we wanted to create in the world. So we're going to go through a lot of gems today because we thought this out beforehand. But just know that, like Amanda said, it's not about the money that you spend, but ultimately you do need to get out of your environment in some capacity, whether it be mindset, whether it be physically. Something needs to happen to create a transformation. I don't care if it's you going to a location, if it's you blocking a day off of work to listen to something, but you do need to put in some work. And we want to say what some of those things are that we think are really impactful.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to take a first stab here. Yeah. I think one of the most important things, just to build up what you just said, is contrast. Mm-hmm. You got to go to different places and be around different people because it helps you learn new things, of course, but see yourself better. Do you remember that one conference when we were so irritated by all the people around us?
Ooh,
it was so annoying.
Wretched. Yeah.
Everybody was talking about purses and hot tubs and scarves and all the things they wanted to buy. And all I could think about the whole time was, I just don't care about this stuff. What am I doing here? And then I had to ask myself, wait a minute, what am I doing here?
Totally. It really brought out quickly, I don't want to be like these people, not in a judgmental way, but in a way of, but here's what actually matters to me. At first, I was really angry, and me and Amanda would be on these walks because, every single day we take a walk, and I was just venting and venting and venting. And then I said, but you know what it shows me? That this is not my community, that these are not my people, that I don't need to pour more energy into this community. Here's what I want to build. Here's what I want to be about. And it's not about the things I can afford. It's about compassion for health being hard. It's about knowing that life is hard. It's about supporting people in those times. It really became very clear. So ironically, I said, this is fine that I'm so angry kind of day to day here. It brought out a really good experience.
Yeah, I remember that. You really were angry.
Yeah. Well,
it was so frustrating. But out of that frustration came clarity. And I think that's such a good reminder, is that even though we have invested a bunch of time and energy to go these things, it's up to us ultimately to derive the value from the experience.
Yeah. So I think this kind of brings up point 2, which is you have to take the responsibility to get your value out of it. And can I give this example where we went to a conference and we sort of just decided to cut bait at one point?
Oh my God, the lunch thing?
Yeah. Okay. Just to give you reference, we're at this conference, and I've talked about this before on the podcast. If you listen to mine, I did a 15-minute rant. I felt horrible. How we went to this conference and it was very sort of how do I describe this? Like man focused, no women in the room, very like, my wife works for free in the company and that's why I can do what I do. And I can't even describe, I'm going to let you give other words to it. Do you have a better description of it? Like why?
How about anger making?
Yeah.
It was a room full of physicians.
Yep.
And I'm not a physician, but I'm very passionate about supporting physicians. Mm-hmm. So I was the only business person in there. I remember that, which was fascinating, number one. And number two, everybody on stage was a white dude.
Yes.
Again, not only were they all male, but they were all white. And I was like, what is going on here? Are the people who need to be served around the country all white men? And all the examples they gave were super, I don't know how to describe it. Super.
Again, it's so hard to put words. It's sort of like man at the top of the totem pole. And I think what's hard about it is that the audience and who needed this help was not all that. It was not that homogenous. The point is example after example after example are being given and they're unaware of how this is sounding. I think that was what struck us.
Yes, that's what was so frustrating. They were talking, the examples were things like, it's really, when you run your business, it can be costly, the back office stuff. So why don't you have your wife do the accounting for free? And I remember thinking, wait a minute. What if you are the wife who's working? Where's your wife who's going to do the accounting? And then the other example is how you can churn through people.
Oh, yeah.
Very quickly.
Oh, you're reminding me real quick.
Yeah. Ooh. And I remember sitting there talking to some of the women physicians and they looked at me and they're like, I can't do that. If I blow through appointments the way that these men are talking about it, I will be seen as cold and heartless and not doing my job. I'll get bad reviews. So there really is deep sexism, as one would expect across the board in all industries, but it shows up in different ways. And it was just very apparent in this conference that it was showing up in this way that was totally unaddressed.
Yeah, so it was very obvious to us after about 2 days of this. We were at a boiling point where I didn't want to sit in the room anymore. Let's say the main conference room, let's put it that way. Basically, we got to this point where by day 2, there was a lunch. And after this lunch, we decided, you know what? We're just going to sit in this room. And again, we're going to hit what are our goals. We're going to write down quarterly goals. But we were just like, we're going to process and think. And what ended up happening at this lunch is that we had one female physician after another sit at this table, and everybody started to share stories of what it was like going through training. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills. And everybody started to share these experiences, and it was the most beautiful thing that had ever happened. And then we decided, okay, we're not going to do this. We're going to go talk to the vendors. And we had all these different experiences that were not quote unquote what was on the menu at the conference. But yet I finally felt fulfilled. We got the clarity that we needed. We met the people that we needed. And sort of those, Amanda's described it as collisions when you're in person and you meet these people. And I would have never gone to this conference thinking that that's what would happen. By the way, got a really great friend from this. I, to this day, still talk to her. And I mean, again, we can't say all the details on everything all the time, but the point is that was not what I went into that conference with the intention. And yet that was 100% what I needed. What did you think?
That was a very, very powerful lunch. Remember how we went out for dinner afterwards with the same people?
Ooh, that was amazing.
That was even more amazing. It was just rich relationship building and connection. It was basically like all these, the orphaned folks attending the conference who drifted over to our table.
With no motivation, by the way. Like, we didn't want anything from anyone. It was just purely connection. It's beautiful, frankly.
Yeah, it was beautiful. You know, the other thing that happened at that conference, which now that you're mentioning the vendors, remember how in the beginning you and I were like, oh, we don't want to talk to the vendors. We sat at that table and we chatted with those women, and then we looked around and we're like, these vendors are here to help us. It totally pivoted our thoughts about it and our perspective. And you and I had the best time talking to everybody because it became about connection.
We learned so much. And again, this is so not what I thought we were going to talk about, but that's great. That's sometimes the best episodes. Yeah, I remember we went and spoke to every single person, and I learned so much. Well, number one, everybody, you need to have a business person next to you, because as a physician, it was so different what I thought to ask versus Amanda would say, all right, so tell me about basically who's funding your company. How strong is it? She was asking these questions where I was thinking, I would never think to ask this, like, who's behind it and where's the funding coming from? And then I thought, we need to care, because if we're using them as a vendor and tomorrow they disappear. So anyway, my mind was blown, but also just the perspective on it, that yes, it's like, what can they do for me? And hearing it in a different way.
Yeah, it was really powerful. And yeah, that was fun to go physician plus business person. We were just going back and forth, learning so much. This reminds me of one of the other conferences we went to where it was a very different venue. We were not in that corporate setting. It was a much more intimate setting, and how community can go the other way too, where you really don't feel connected to the community. Even though it's intimate. It was like, what, 20 people? Yeah, it does. 25?
The size does not matter, FYI. It's a feeling, and it's what's happening in the room that creates that or not.
And ultimately becomes a decision. So remember that one where we were getting annoyed again because we weren't feeling connected? And you and I sat down and we made a couple of decisions. And I remember one of them was we had to turn off our phones.
Yep.
And we committed to being present. Mm-hmm. And we committed to taking notes, even though, by the way, the content wasn't that amazing. But you take notes to, well, in my case, at some points to stay awake because I was getting bored. But shh, don't tell anybody. Take notes, but then you review those notes in the breaks and at the end of the day and use them as discussion points with somebody else in the group. And we built connection based on that.
Yes. Because ultimately, I think also we decided, look, let's get back to beginner's mindset. So I think that's a big thing, right? Because you get to this place, especially if you've done a lot of conferences or you do a lot of self-development work, where you really have heard the stuff before. There's nothing really, to be honest, super new that's happening at some point. However, Can you re-engage yourself? Can you come at it with a different lens? What can you actually take out of this? So yes, continuing to stay engaged. I'll never forget this. Again, I don't know if this person listens to the podcast, but there was someone at the conference and they're playing video games the entire time on their phone next to me. And honestly, it was really distracting for me. So I had to like turn a different way, but that person can do whatever they do. And again, I don't ever know anyone's scenario. Some people are neurodivergent and actually helps them to focus. That's on you. Okay. But for me personally, I have had to get into the habit of turning the phone off, like turning it down, putting it away, because otherwise it's a real choice to not engage when you're there and to continue to stay in another world, but you are present here in this room. One of the big moments here, even if you're doing a virtual conference at home, turn off your notifications. Tell people you're not available. Do not answer emails. This is not a time to do those other things. I'm going to give an example on the flip side. This is not one that we attended together, but there's like a million things I do a year. So I was attending something, and again, and I know we're saying a lot of negative experiences, but we'll say a lot of positive ones coming up here. But I sat there and did my taxes. And you know what I said? That's garbage. Like I should have just logged off. There was no reason to be sitting there on a virtual thing, pretending to listen when I was doing something else. Really being present with what is there, I think can be incredibly helpful.
I think it's a reminder that you have to give yourself permission to quit.
Yes.
And you have to define what does quit mean, right? Like in that case, you were going to just go do something else. Versus other times you're like, I'm just going to not be so attached to what this person's saying right now, but it's my job to extract the value. So I think the bottom line is, at the end of the day, we are all individually responsible for our own experiences. And life, we go to these conferences and we show up the best we can. I believe people are doing the best they can to create
100%.
these. I mean, it's so much work.
So much work.
So much respect for the people who put them on. And it's really easy to judge. And so I think a big flip for us was get out of judgment mode and get into learning mode. That is the big thing. And you know how we know when we do that successfully is afterwards. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So one of the big things that we always do afterward, or let's say me personally, I literally have a day blocked on the other end, and I will take the time to go through the notes, to be thinking, to reviewing, to physically go through that and write out, okay, what are the 1 or 2 action steps I'm going to take, or the one thing that I'm going to continue to go forward with, because most of these things are about 3-4 days. By the time you have travel in there, usually you're leaving like a Thursday night, you're coming back on a Sunday night or Monday morning, things like that. So there's that time. But another thing I just want to say with the digestion part, a lot of the times it's a big travel day involved on both ends, right? And coming back, it is very common that I will listen to absolutely nothing. I want to give an example from just about 2 years ago. I went to a conference. It was great. And I leave this conference, I want to say Sunday at like noon. Yeah, because we had lunch and then I left. There was a 2-hour shuttle from where the resort was to get to Vegas airport. I was in silence there. I just sat in silence, looked at the mountains. Then I have 2 layovers, of course, because nothing's direct back to Indy. And I didn't listen to anything. At one point, it's pitch black in the plane. The point is, I was thinking the entire time about it. It was this massive digestion and processing and thinking. And I want to tell you something. After that, I had the biggest leap, both in my life health-wise and business-wise. And it wasn't even what they said. It was how I processed it and that I gave myself fully that time. That conference, I wept my eyes out in the middle of it. I knew no one when I went there. It was a rather intimate group. And one day in, I'm there, I'm just crying and crying and crying in my hotel room. I don't think I've ever told these stories. This is good. And at one point, I talked to a friend that couldn't come because this person had a surgery emergently, couldn't come. And she says, what are you complaining about? You're in a beautiful location. Get out of your hotel room and go enjoy. And I stopped crying. I went to the pool. I decided, I don't care if no one's talking to me or what's happening. I can enjoy this time. I've never had a bigger moment. And so this is the thing I want to really get down to here, because I don't want to get lost in the details with this really digesting things. It's never about the experience. You can turn it around at any moment. It's actually not a bad thing if you cry. It's not a bad thing if you feel you don't fit in. Do not go down victim mode. Like, yes, let yourself process the emotion. Honestly, I think I processed what I probably for years had not cried about. I mean, seriously, it was about 3 hours of crying. It was great. Okay, we let it out. And then I moved on. but it was not a victim experience. And in fact, the host of that retreat, I talked to maybe 6 months later, and they had no idea anything that had happened. And I said, but this was a good thing. This was not about you. This was not about whatever. I needed to go through that. Like that was a good experience. And I think it's only because I've always had this thought of Amanda's in my mind. It's my job to get the value here. And so allowing the emotion to pass through, not staying in victim mentality, taking time to just sit with myself and process on the back end, and then also developing the practice of always blocking the day after, which is painful because in business, you just want to get right back to it. The problem is this reintegration when you get back from something, it's wicked. It is wicked tough, right? Because you've been really like elevated and you've been really motivated and you're in this different zone. And then you come back to the hard, true facts of the world and you need time to land the plane. You need that time.
God, I couldn't have said it better, Rentea. I totally agree. I think it's kind of a win when you cry.
Yes.
Because on the other side is so much clarity.
I cry a lot now.
And she's proud of it. No, it's a thing because it's all these emotions bubbled up. Listen, you have things going on throughout your life, throughout the year, and it comes to a head when you pause your life and take a breath, right?
Yes.
Do you know, in my role as HR, we used to joke about how we were always like, okay, how many people are going to come in and quit their jobs in January after taking off 2 weeks for the holidays?
You told me that and I never knew that. You're like, yes, it's January when it happens because people have had a moment.
Yeah, it's totally important. The pause is so critical, but within the pause, letting yourself have all the feelings and the emotions that come up on the other side is clarity. And that's the bottom line. And when you're running a business or you're looking to improve your health, you need clarity. So we have to put ourselves in these positions that are uncomfortable, be willing to do it to be able to earn that clarity.
Ooh, you said something good. The willing to earn it. Because I want to give just a moment here. I run these 30-30 programs. So anyone that's listening that doesn't know, they're small group coaching programs. And it is hard for people to share on the calls. I want to honor anyone that's listening to this, that's in my group, has been in my groups, things like that. It is really hard in a small group to unmute your freaking mic and speak up.
Oh, God, yeah.
To talk, right? To talk about I just want to say, not only the sharing is hard, because I literally get a racing heart when I'm in a group, and I'm not even like a nervous person, but to share that, not only to be willing to speak up with what's going on, good or bad, because also people feel bad for sharing good things too. There's no winning. Okay. Hear me, people. There's no winning, but the post-vulnerability hangover, oh my gosh, what Brene Brown talks about where later you're just beating yourself up. You're thinking, I sounded so stupid. Why did I share that? Why did I, whatever? That is so hard. But can I tell you that those are the people where I see them round to round, the transformation is insane. And they'll say, that first round was about this. And then this round was about that because they're willing to go through it. Yeah. And it's hard because I think the statistics are about 1 out of 10 people only speak up. And listen, I'm introverted. I don't like to speak up. So this is why I feel I'm the best person to talk about it. But the reality is you have to be willing to go through these things. Like you don't get to the other side. You stay on that side of the river if you're not willing to do it.
Well, and part of the problem is you're stuck in judgment.
Yes.
And it gets into just like when you go to a conference, if you're judging how everything's set up, I don't like it. I don't like the food. I'm sitting too long. The speaker isn't great, blah, 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 blah. Everything is externally focused and you're taking no accountability for yourself. And when you're in a group like yours, like that 30-30 program, one of the things that makes it so phenomenal is it's an invitation for everybody to drop the judgment and to start showing up and sharing. And on the other side of that is all this, again, clarity.
100%. I was talking to Amanda before I ever did the 30-30 group, and we were literally talking about, okay, how do I start the first call? And one of the things that we talked about is that I said, look, if someone's triggering you, you need to think about what's coming up in me that this is happening. Because it's never about the other person, it's about you. That is more helpful than thinking, oh, this was a bad call or whatever, because some days the stars hit right and it's really great, and other days it's a different energy, but it's all valid. We're going down a different rabbit hole, but I notice some days everyone's really down and we need that. We need that day when everyone's in the pits of things. And then there's days when everyone's sharing the most amazing wins I didn't know were possible collectively. And that's phenomenal too, but that's not reality to always be in this, hi. Like the conference that we're attending right now, there was John Maxwell gave the talk, right? What is it? Everything worthwhile is uphill. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do, you might have already heard the episode or not, depending on when I air it, because I'm going to do a whole talk based on that. But this whole concept of, things that are really worth having, life's always hard, the end. Mm-hmm. And once you accept that, it makes the journey easier. One thing I want to pivot to, though, is also talking about how, so when you're going to these conferences, expect usually 1 or 2 gems and the rest to just be tolerable. Because there's usually a few speakers, there's a few good talks. It just can't always all be amazing. And that's okay.
It actually doesn't need to be at the end of the day. Our brains are puny, right?
Yes.
I remember like 2 things a day. I've got the brain of a squirrel. So it doesn't need to be amazing. You just need to write it down. And then once in a while you go back to your notes. That's why you write your notes down. You summarize things and then you find somebody to talk to about it. Because as you discuss it again, you reabsorb it. But if you revisit it a few months later, you're like, it's a brand new thought, like as if it never happened.
Totally. One of the things I know that we like to do, because we're in a little bit of a larger friend circle, and we will get on Marco Polo and go over our notes. We actually do this for everything. If I'm attending things, like I attended a virtual social media conference, and I was like, listen, this was great, and that was great. And you summarize it because you learn more. You learn by sharing it. It solidifies in a little bit more. Finding people that you can reflect with, whether it be in a group setting, whether it be a friend you can talk to. I think that connection is really important, not only live at the conferences, but after.
Totally. Just be aware that sometimes if your spouse hasn't gone to the conference.
I'm glad we're talking about this.
Don't expect your spouse to pick up all the threads, okay? Just give them a break if you have a partner in your life. Anyway, all right, listen, I think we've covered a lot. We've really talked about learning opportunities. It's an investment. If you want to transform, you have to invest in yourself. And that requires time and money and focus and willingness to drop the judgment and stay in beginner's mindset. Ultimately, we're trying to get everybody to expand into a new realm of possibility that because of our past histories and experiences, we just didn't think was possible. And we have to, as folks walking along the journey with them, we have to embody that ourselves so that we can better serve our clients and patients.
Do you think that there's anything that we didn't address that's still critical for someone to know? Or do you think we hit every single point?
I think you need to think about investments like this, like in conferences and growth and learning opportunities, as thinking about which ones you choose to attend and being disciplined about, is that helping you become the next version of yourself?
Oh, that's good. I'm so glad I asked this last question. I'm going to give a little example here. We were at, again, another conference, and Amanda said, what do you need to invest in this next year to become the next version of yourself? Everybody listening, it became instantly clear that I needed to drop so many of the conferences I was attending. I needed to pivot in a 180 direction. And if I tell you that after I left that conference, I changed so many things, right? You had whiplash. When you heard, you're like, you did what? Because I did so many changes because I thought about what did I need to invest my time, my energy, all of it. And it was not the direction I was going. So you can change direction. You can reprioritize. But yeah, I think this has been a really good conversation. I'm glad that we talked about this.
Me too.
All right. Well, subscribe to both of our podcasts. We'll have the links in the show notes. And if you have questions, let us know in the fan mail section. All right.
Bye.
That marks the end of today's episode. But if you're newer to the podcast, I want to tell you about something that we have, and it's a free podcast roadmap. So this is perfect for any of you that are listening where you want to be directed to very specific episodes. So let's say that you are just starting out and you want to know, what should I do right when I start on the medications? Or you're experiencing certain side effects on the GLP-1s, or you want to know what to do if you're in a plateau, or if emotional eating is taking over, or if hunger levels are high. So we have many different categories of episodes that we've talked about, because there's a lot at this point. So if you want to be able to navigate that very easily, we have it broken down by category and also the episodes that are there, and we hyperlink to everything. So you can just click on it and find the episode, easy peasy. If you want that, you can go to renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. We'll have it linked right here underneath the show notes where you're listening. And you can go ahead and get that free resource so that it makes it easy for you to navigate, because I know that it's really hard when someone has an established podcast. I am such a podcast fiend. I'm listening to podcasts all day long. And when I find one that I love, but there's a lot that are out there, I am so lost. So I hope that you enjoy this free podcast roadmap. Again, the link to get to that is going to be renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. I hope this is helpful and let me know if you have any questions.